"Luca, please don't touch that," Vincent Lowell whispered through clenched teeth, lunging forward just in time to rescue a crystal vase from the toddler's curious grip. A polite chuckle came from behind him. First time on a preschool tour, Vincent turned, breath caught halfway in his throat. The woman standing there was stunning long waves of dark chestnut hair, soft hazel eyes, and a calm smile that somehow made the chaos around them feel a little less loud. She wore a simple beige blouse tucked into tailored pants, but she held herself like she belonged somewhere important. Still, she bent slightly to smile at Luca. "Yeah," Vincent said, adjusting Luca on his hip. "Is it that obvious?" "Only because I was exactly like you last year," she said, offering her hand. "Brielle Langston, my niece goes here. They make you sign your soul away on the forms, but the snack program is top tier." Vincent laughed, the sound surprising even himself. He shook her hand quickly, suddenly aware of the roughness of his calloused fingers. "Vincent, and this is Luca." "He's 4 and already smarter than me." Luca frowned. "I'm almost 5. Vincent kissed the top of his son's curly head. "Correction, almost 5. Brielle crouched down. "Hi, Luca, I'm Brielle. I hope you like puzzles, because I hear the seahorse classroom has a giant one on the wall." Luca's face lit up. "Do they have dinosaurs?" "Only the friendly kind," she said, winking. Vincent watched, heart tugging. Meeting new people wasn't easy for Luca. But with Brielle, he'd opened up in seconds. The group moved into the next room, and Brielle fell into step beside him. "You're here solo?" she asked gently. Vincent nodded. "Yeah, just me and Luca. His mom left when he was 2. He didn't elaborate, didn't need to." Brielle's smile softened. "You're doing amazing. Some days it feels like drowning in paperwork and peanut butter," he said, only half joking. She laughed again, and he hadn't realized how much he missed the sound of a woman laughing near him. Not in months. Maybe years. As the tour ended, the director gave a short speech about tuition, enrollment lists, and deadlines. Vincent's chest tightened. He scribbled notes, but all he could hear was the sound of his bank account quietly weeping. The monthly tuition was more than his rent. Outside in the lot, he adjusted Luca's jacket and sighed. "I should probably get going," Brielle said beside him. He nodded, not wanting the moment to end. "Thanks for not making me feel like a total mess in there." "You're not a mess, Vincent. You're a dad." "That's never messy, it's just real," he smiled. "You seem to have it all figured out." "Oh, I'm a disaster in disguise," she said with a shrug. "I just hide it better," he laughed. "Well, thanks for today, for talking to Luca. He's been nervous about school. Then I'll have to keep bumping into you two until he thinks school is the best place ever." Vincent raised a brow. "Is that a promise?" Brielle tilted her head. "Maybe." They shared a smile that lingered just a little too long. He drove home in his beat-up SUV, Luca dozing in the back seat, and found himself thinking about Brielle's smile more than the tuition he couldn't afford. 3 days later, she showed up again. Vincent was dropping off forms when he spotted her outside, chatting with a teacher. She wore sunglasses and held a coffee cup with a gold-foiled logo he didn't recognize. She saw him and waved. "Back again?" he asked as she joined him by the bench outside. "I told you I'd bump into you," she said, offering him a second cup. He stared at it. "You brought me coffee," she shrugged. "I had a feeling you were the kind of guy who forgets breakfast." He took it, touched. "You're not wrong." They sat quietly sipping. "Lucas on the wait list," he said finally. "We're number 6, Brielle nodded. "That's not far. It is when you're trying to plan around 2 jobs and no backup childcare. You work 2 jobs, construction during the week, nights at a warehouse on weekends. It's not glamorous, but it keeps us afloat." She looked at him, something unreadable in her eyes. "You're incredible," he chuckled. "I'm tired. Still, you're raising a good kid. That matters more than anything." He looked at her then, really looked. "Why are you being so nice to us?" She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I know what it's like to need someone to just show up for you. No strings, no expectations." Vincent didn't ask, but he understood that there was more to Brielle Langston than she let on. A week later, she invited them to brunch. Vincent hesitated at the restaurant entrance. It had floor-to-ceiling windows, a valet parking sign, and a host in a suit. "I think we're underdressed," he muttered, glancing at his faded jeans and Luca's superhero hoodie. Brielle appeared at the door, waving them over. "You're perfect." Inside, the waiters called her Miss Langston. The menu had no prices. Vincent couldn't pronounce half the dishes. "I think I just saw someone famous," he whispered. "You probably did," she said, sipping orange juice. He blinked. "Okay, who are you really?" She looked at him, then at Luca, who was happily coloring the menu. "My family owns Langston Holdings," she said quietly. "We're in real estate, tech, fashion, a little bit of everything." Vincent blinked. "So, you're rich," she smiled. "I'm a billionaire, Vincent." He stared at her, stunned. "Why didn't you say anything?" "I didn't want you to look at me like everyone else does. I liked the way you looked at me. Like I was normal." "So what, you just hang around preschool tours for fun?" She laughed. "I fund this school's scholarship program. I was there to meet the new director." He leaned back, processing. "Wow, okay, you're not mad." "No, I mean shocked, yeah. But you're still the woman who talked to my kid and brought me coffee." She reached across the table, touching his hand. "Still me." Vincent looked down at their hands. Her fingers were soft and warm. His heart raced. "I don't care about your money," he said. "But I do care about how I feel when I'm around you." Her eyes softened. "And how do you feel?" "Like I can breathe." It was there in the way she smiled, in the way she didn't let go of his hand. She was a billionaire in love, and he was a struggling dad who never saw her coming. "Are you sure this is okay?" Vincent asked, glancing around the rooftop terrace with a wary expression. "I feel like I just stepped into a magazine spread." "That's because you basically did," Brielle replied lightly, handing him a glass of something with a slice of blood orange floating in it. "My friend owns the building. She lets me use the rooftop when I need to escape the noise." Vincent took the drink but didn't touch it. "Your definition of noise probably includes champagne corks and yacht engines." She laughed, not offended in the slightest. "Sometimes. But mostly, it's just meetings. Endless ones." Luca was seated on a cushioned lounge chair in the corner, his legs swinging as he munched on a slice of pizza from a box that looked wildly out of place among the marble planters and glass fire pit. A security guard stood discreetly near the elevator, watching but not intruding. "I thought billionaires ate tiny plates of things with foam on top," Vincent said, settling beside her on a sleek outdoor couch. "I do," she said, lifting a brow. "Right before I order pizza because I'm still starving." Vincent chuckled, but his eyes wandered to Luca again. "He's never been this high up before." He asked if we were in the clouds. Brielle tilted her head. "I like that. I forget how magical this can feel to someone seeing it for the first time." "You ever miss being normal?" Vincent asked. Her gaze didn't waver. "All the time." He looked at her, studying the way the wind pulled a strand of her hair across her cheek. "Why me, Brielle?" She blinked. "Why you what?" "I'm not rich. I'm not influential. I'm not even particularly interesting. I'm just a guy trying to make it through the week without losing his mind." "You're honest," she said, her voice quieter now, "and grounded, and you don't see me as a brand or a bank account. You're the first person in years who's looked at me without calculating what they can get out of it." Vincent didn't know what to say. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was full of something unspoken, a weight that neither of them wanted to disturb. Luca ran over, holding something in his hand. "Brielle, look, I found a coin on the floor." She smiled and crouched to his level. "That's a good luck coin. Keep it with you and it'll bring you a surprise." Luca's eyes lit up. "Like a dinosaur, maybe," she said, tapping his nose. "Or something even cooler." Vincent watched her with his son and felt something shift. She wasn't just kind, she was intentional. After Luca wandered back to his chair, Vincent turned to her. "You're different than I expected." "And what exactly did you expect? A woman who lives in a penthouse and owns half the city? I figured you'd be cold or detached, but you're warm, open." She looked away for a moment. "That's not what most people see." Maybe they're not looking close enough. The elevator dinged behind them. A tall man in an immaculate navy suit stepped out. His presence was sharp, polished. "Miss Langston," he said, nodding respectfully. "Apologies for interrupting, but the Paris board call is starting. They've been waiting." "I told them I wasn't available tonight," Brielle said, her voice cool. "They insisted. The merger news leaked." She sighed, then turned to Vincent. "I need a few minutes." "I'll keep Luca company," he said, watching her disappear into the building with the man. Luca climbed onto the couch beside him, holding up the coin. "Do you think it's real magic?" Vincent looked at the coin, then at Brielle's empty seat. Maybe it is. An hour passed before she returned, barefoot now, heels in her hand. Her expression was tight. Everything okay? Vincent asked. Just business. They panicked over nothing, as usual. He hesitated. This happened a lot, too often, she admitted, but I'm learning to draw lines. I want more than just boardrooms and headlines. He studied her for a long second. What do you want? She looked at him, eyes softening. Something real. Then why me? He asked again, this time not out of insecurity but genuine curiosity. Her voice dropped. Because when I'm with you, I feel human again. That night, as he buckled Luca into his booster seat and watched Brielle wave goodbye, something settled in Vincent's chest, a realization he couldn't shake. She wasn't just interested, she was serious. The next morning, a delivery truck pulled up to his apartment building. The driver handed Vincent a letter, no branding, just his name written in neat cursive. Inside was an acceptance letter from the preschool. Luca had been moved off the wait list. A full scholarship had been granted anonymously. Vincent stared at it, heart thudding. There was no signature, no clue, just a single line at the bottom. Some surprises come when you least expect them. He looked out at the street, half expecting to see her car, but there was only stillness and a feeling in his chest he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Vincent stood motionless in front of the preschool bulletin board, the letter still clutched in his hand. His pulse thundered in his ears, but the voices around him, the chatter of other parents, the squeals of children barely registered. Hey, he turned to find Brielle standing beside him, her coat draped over one arm, a small bag slung over her shoulder. Her gaze flicked to the envelope in his hand, the gold-embossed seal unmistakable. You did this, he said quietly. Her expression didn't change. I pulled a few strings. But the scholarship fund is real. I never asked for this. She looked at him, calm but unwavering. You didn't have to. Luca deserves a space here, that's all that matters. His jaw tightened, emotions scraping raw inside him. You think I can't take care of my own son? No, she said quickly. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? I wanted to help, she said, voice low. Because I care. Because I'm not used to caring about people this much, and it scares the hell out of me, but I'm not going to pretend I don't. Vincent's grip on the envelope eased. The defensiveness in his chest cracked slightly. I don't want to be something you feel obligated to save. You're not, she said. You're someone I've chosen to believe in. He looked at her, really looked, and whatever protest was forming dissolved under the weight of her sincerity. Thank you, he said finally. She smiled, softly this time. You're welcome. That night he found himself pacing his living room, tension still coiled in his shoulders. Luca was asleep, his small form curled under his favorite blanket. Vincent's phone buzzed. Brielle. He hesitated before answering. Hey, do you have plans tomorrow night? He glanced around the apartment. You mean besides laundry and figuring out how to stretch groceries until Friday? A faint laugh filtered through the line. I want to take you somewhere. Just you? I don't exactly own anything that fits into your world. Perfect, she said. Then you'll stand out. The next evening, he stood outside an unmarked building in Soho, wearing the only blazer he owned. Brielle emerged from a sleek black car, wearing a navy dress that didn't sparkle or scream wealth, it whispered elegance. She took one look at him and smiled. You clean up well, he exhaled. I feel like a fraud. Good, she said, looping her arm through his. Then you'll fit in perfectly. Inside, the space was dimly lit, walls covered in abstract art, the air tinged with the scent of jasmine and aged wine. A string quartet played in the corner. People moved like they belonged to a different world entirely. Vincent leaned in. Where are we? My friend's gallery. She's debuting a new collection tonight. I promised I'd show my face. And you brought me. I wanted you here. They made their way through the crowd, Brielle stopping occasionally to greet people who clearly knew her well. Vincent noticed the way they looked at him, curious, assessing. But Brielle never let go of his hand. At one point, a tall woman with silver hair approached them. Brielle, darling, and this must be the mystery man. Vincent offered his hand. Vincent. Francesca, the woman said, shaking it. She's never brought anyone to one of these. You must be something special. He glanced at Brielle, who said nothing, just sipped her champagne. Later, as they stood by a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city, he finally spoke. Do you bring a lot of people into your world like this? No, she said without hesitation. Only the ones I want to keep, his breath caught. I've been around people who only wanted me for what I could offer, she continued. But you've never asked for anything. Not even now. I don't want anything from you, he said, except maybe your time, she turned toward him, and if I gave you more of it, I wouldn't waste it. There was no need for pretense in that moment. The city lights reflected in her eyes. She stepped closer. I'm scared, she said softly. Of what? Of wanting this too much. Vincent didn't move. Then we're both scared. She leaned in slowly, and he met her halfway. The kiss wasn't urgent, it was steady, like the start of something that had taken its time to build. When they broke apart, her hands rested lightly on his chest. I've never done anything like this, she said. He smiled faintly. I've never kissed a billionaire before. She laughed quietly, forehead resting against his. You're impossible. I try. The ride back was quiet, their fingers intertwined in the car. When they reached his building, she walked him to the door. You want to come up? He asked. She hesitated. Not yet, he nodded. Okay, but I do want to see you tomorrow. You will. As he stepped inside, the air felt different. Lighter, he peeked in on Luca, still asleep, peaceful. Then he pulled out the small card Brielle had slipped into his pocket earlier. It was handwritten. You don't have to fit into my world. I just want you in it. He folded the card, heart full in a way it hadn't been in years. This was real. And it was just beginning. Vincent adjusted the strap of Luca's backpack as the classroom door swung open and the morning rush of parents and teachers flowed past. He crouched and gave Luca a quick hug. Be good today. I'll be here right at pickup. Luca nodded, eyes already on the brightly colored shelves of toys inside. Brielle said she might stop by after school. Vincent's eyebrows lifted slightly. She did, huh? She said she had a surprise, Luca added, then darted off before Vincent could ask anything more. Outside, he tugged his jacket tighter and spotted Brielle leaning against the gate, sunglasses perched atop her head, phone pressed to her ear. She ended the call, slipped it into her coat pocket, and met him with a look that carried something unspoken. You okay? He asked. I had breakfast with my father, she said. He thinks you're either a phase or an elaborate rebellion. Vincent's expression didn't change. And what do you think? She tilted her head. I think he's wrong on both counts. Does he know about Luca? He knows just enough to be concerned I'm developing a heart. They began walking, side by side, the early morning bustle of the city stretching around them. When I was 16, she said slowly, he told me love was a weakness, that it made people reckless, vulnerable. Vincent glanced at her. Do you believe that? I did, for a long time. But then you showed up with paint on your shirt and your son's lunch in your back pocket, and you looked at me like I wasn't something to win or collect. He looked down at the sidewalk, jaw tightening. I'm not trying to prove anything to your family, Brielle. I know, she said. That's why I invited them to dinner. He stopped walking. What? They're in town. My father, my stepmother, and my brother. I thought maybe it was time. Time for what? For them to meet the man I want to build a future with. Vincent stared at her, stunned. You want to build a future with me? She held his gaze. I'm not interested in temporary. His heart slammed once against his ribs. Okay, he said finally, voice rough. Dinner it is. The restaurant was quiet, subtly lit, not ostentatious but unmistakably elite. Vincent wore the tailored jacket Brielle had sent over that afternoon, still tagged with a designer name he didn't recognize. She'd also arranged for a sitter, her personal assistant's cousin, someone Luca knew and liked. When they arrived, her family was already seated. Her father rose first. He was tall, lean, and carried an air of practiced control, his silver cufflinks catching the low light. Her brother, younger by a few years, gave Vincent a single tight nod. Introductions were brief and civil. Brielle sat beside Vincent, her fingers brushing his beneath the table. He knew she was giving him an anchor and he held onto it. Her stepmother broke the silence first. So, Vincent, what exactly do you do? Vincent met her gaze. Construction mostly, residential and commercial. I also work nights at a distribution center. Her father narrowed his eyes. And this is sustainable. For raising a child, it's not easy, Vincent said. But I don't cut corners. Luca has a roof, food, and someone who shows up for every recital and dentist appointment. I might not have stocks or trust funds, but I've got consistency. The table went quiet. Brielle's brother leaned forward. And you're comfortable with her being the one with the wealth? Vincent paused, then answered carefully. I love her. Not her bank account. I'm not intimidated by what she has because I'm not trying to take it. I'm trying to build something beside her, not below her. Brielle's father stiffened. Love, he repeated, as if the word tasted foreign. Vincent looked at him. Yeah, love. Brielle reached for her wine but didn't drink. Dad, I'm not asking for permission. I brought you here so you'd understand that this is real, that I'm not living my life by your metrics anymore. Her father's jaw clenched. I don't dislike you, Vincent, but this, he gestured vaguely toward them, feels impulsive. I've never seen her more calm, her brother said quietly. Everyone turned toward him. I've watched her run empires, he continued, but I've never seen her breathe around someone the way she breathes around him. The air between them shifted. Later, as they stepped into the chilly evening, Vincent exhaled slowly. You okay? Brielle asked. He let out a short breath. I feel like I just walked a tightrope in front of a firing squad. You did, she said, looping her arm through his. And you didn't flinch. He looked at her, something blooming in his chest. You said you had a surprise for Luca. I do. Come with me. They stopped outside a building on the Upper West Side. She handed him a key. What is this? She opened the door and led him inside. The lobby was warm, quiet, with polished floors and fresh lilies on a side table. Apartment 4B, she said, guiding him up the stairs. Inside, the space was cozy, 2 bedrooms, sunlight streaming through wide windows, hardwood floors, a small kitchen. A view of the park. Vincent turned slowly. You bought this. I had it for years. I used to stay here when I needed to get away from everything. But I don't need it anymore. He stared at her, eyes wide. You're giving it to me, to us, she said. No strings, no debts, just a home. Somewhere Luca can paint on the walls and you can breathe. He didn't speak. Couldn't. I don't want to rescue you, Vincent, she said softly. I just want to stand beside you when you finally stop surviving and start living. His throat tightened. You sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything. He walked toward her, took her face in both hands and kissed her like he'd been holding his breath for years. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said. I know, she whispered. I love you too. The next morning, Luca ran through the empty apartment, barefoot and laughing, his voice echoing off the walls. Vincent stood beside Brielle in the doorway, her hand tucked into his. I think he likes it, she said. Vincent nodded. I think we all do. They had no audience, no headlines, no curated perfection, just 3 people learning what happiness felt like when it was honest. And for the first time in a long time, Vincent wasn't holding his breath. He was home. Vincent adjusted the sleeves of his shirt as he stepped into the ballroom of the Langston Foundation Gala, the scent of fresh peonies and polished silver saturating the air. The room shimmered with soft golden light, guests in black tie attire drifting between glittering tables and champagne towers. A string ensemble played in the corner, the melody delicate, refined. He wasn't used to this world, not the formal wear, not the artfully plated hors d'oeuvres, not the people who looked like they stepped off magazine covers. But tonight wasn't about blending in. Tonight was about standing beside Brielle. She appeared at the top of the marble staircase, wearing a deep emerald gown that flowed like water with every step. Her hair was swept into a graceful twist, a pair of diamond earrings catching the light as she moved. When she saw him, she smiled, not for anyone else, not for the cameras, just for him. You clean up dangerously well, she said as she reached him. He leaned in, his lips brushing her cheek. I feel like a pawn in the middle of a royal chessboard. You're not a pawn, she murmured. You're the only reason I wanted to be here. They moved through the crowd together, her fingers resting lightly on his arm. Every so often, someone would stop her to shake hands or exchange polite greetings. She introduced Vincent without hesitation, never once altering the grace in her voice or the warmth in her expression. You're the man who helped her pull out of the Shanghai expansion, aren't you? A sharply dressed investor asked, eyes sweeping over Vincent. No, Vincent replied calmly. I'm the man who makes her laugh when the rest of you are too busy calculating. There was a pause, and then the man laughed, clapping him on the shoulder before drifting off. Brielle glanced at Vincent. I think you just stunned Alan Whitmore into silence. That's a first. I didn't mean to offend him. You didn't. You just reminded him I'm still human." As the evening unfolded, the MC took the stage and called Brielle forward. The crowd applauded as she stepped up, her presence commanding without being cold. Vincent watched her speak about education, opportunity, and the future she wanted the foundation to build. But what struck him most wasn't the polish in her words. It was the conviction, the fire behind her calm. When she returned to their table, she leaned in. "You looked terrified. I'm not used to being the date of the woman changing the world." "Well," she said, eyes glinting, "get used to it." Later in the evening, as the crowd began to thin and the music softened, Brielle tugged Vincent toward the terrace. The skyline stretched around them, the city glittering like a sea of stars. "I've been thinking," she said, turning toward him. "About what comes next." Vincent hesitated. "For the foundation, for us." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a folded piece of paper. He opened it and read the words slowly. "Langston Lowell Family Trust Education Grant Proposal. It's a new scholarship," she said. "One for single parents, full tuition, mentoring, support systems." "I wanted to name it after you, but I figured you'd hate that." Vincent stared at the paperwork, swallowing hard. "You didn't have to, I wanted to," she said. "Because you've changed the way I see everything. Because you reminded me that love isn't about power or protection, it's about building something that lasts. And I want to build it with you." He looked down at the paper again, then back at her. "You really want to do this?" "All of it?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He didn't answer with words. He pulled her in so close the city vanished behind them, pressing his forehead to hers before kissing her with every ounce of feeling he'd kept buried for too long. They didn't need to say anything more. Weeks passed. The apartment filled with life, Luca's drawings taped to the fridge, the scent of fresh coffee every morning, the sound of laughter echoing through the hallway. Vincent adjusted to working fewer hours. Thanks to the position, Brielle helped him secure site supervisor for one of her company's nonprofit housing projects. He didn't feel like a kept man. He felt like a partner. Like the man she'd chosen because of who he was, not what he had. One morning, as he packed Luca's lunch, Brielle appeared in the doorway barefoot, holding a small velvet box. "Before you say anything, no, it's not what you think," she said quickly, stepping closer. Vincent raised a brow. "Should I be worried?" She opened it to reveal a slim silver band. "It's a commitment ring, not a proposal, not yet, just a promise that I'm not going anywhere." He reached for it slowly, then took her hand. "Then let me make the same one." He pulled his own ring from his pocket, something he'd been carrying for days, unsure of the right moment. It wasn't flashy. Just simple white gold, engraved with a single word inside, "Always." She gasped softly as he slipped it onto her finger. "I didn't want to wait," he said, "because I already knew." Her eyes welled. "So did I." They kissed in the kitchen, the morning sun warm on their faces, Luca's voice singing from the next room. Months later, they stood together beneath a canopy of fairy lights in Central Park, surrounded by a small circle of friends, family, and colleagues. Luca stood proudly beside them, holding the rings with solemn importance. The ceremony was brief, heartfelt, and free of spectacle. It didn't need grandeur. It already had everything that mattered. As they shared their vows, Vincent looked at Brielle, not the billionaire, not the heiress, not the public figure, but the woman who had seen him when the world looked away. "I never thought I'd find someone who felt like peace," he said. "But you always were." She took his hands. "You didn't just walk into my life, you showed me how to live it." They kissed as the crowd erupted in cheers, but all they felt was each other. Later that night, as they danced beneath the open sky, the city lights glowing around them, Vincent whispered in her ear. "Still think love makes people reckless," she smiled against his chest. "Only the best kind." The music swelled and they twirled slowly, wrapped in each other, the future stretching ahead of them like the skyline they'd once stared at from opposite lives. No more survival, no more pretending. Just love, real and forever.